Wish TV is focused on family and the community and is committed to sharing the stories of those who are making a difference every day. From the All Indiana Podcast Network and Wish TV, this is Behind the Eight Podcast with Wish TV's George Mallet.
This is George Mallet. On this edition of Behind the Eight, we talk to News 8's Scott Sander. The longtime anchor of News 8 Daybreak is the quintessential newsman. Each day he gives us the news, and he gives it to us straight. No spin, no hype, just the facts in short, declarative sentences. Scott is a reporter's reporter with an abundance of curiosity about and passion for the community where he lives. In a moment, Scott Sander.
What can 160 years of experience teach you about the future? A lot, especially when it comes to protecting what matters. At Pacific Life, we've helped people and businesses confidently embrace the future with life insurance, retirement income, and employee benefits. With strategies built on strength and trust, and a promise to be here for you today and tomorrow. Ask a financial professional how Pacific Life can help you today. Pacific Life Insurance Company, Omaha, Nebraska, and in New York. Pacific Life and Annuity, Phoenix, Arizona.
If you're shopping while working, eating, or even listening to this podcast, then you know and love the thrill of a deal. But are you getting the deal and cash back? Rakuten shoppers do. They get the brands they love, savings, and cash back. And you can get it too. Start getting cash back at your favorite stores like Target, Sephora, and even Expedia. Stack sales on top of cash back and feel what it's like to know you're maximizing the savings. It's easy to use, and you get your cash back sent to you through PayPal or check. The idea is simple. Stores pay Rakuten for sending them shoppers, and Rakuten shares the money with you as cash back. Download the free Rakuten app or go to Rakuten.com to start saving today. It's the most rewarding way to shop. That's Rakuten, Rakuten.com.
And I am joined now by Scott Sander. He is the man in the morning here at Wish TV 8. Scott, the thing that strikes me about you, and I've told you this, is the fact that you are old school in that you always come to the set prepared. It's very clear that you have command of what you're talking about. Give me a sense of your philosophy in the morning when you're defending the people's right to know.
Well, I figure that there is still a value in any job that you accept, doing it the best you possibly can. And I guess I live in maybe perpetual fear that I will reach a moment where I haven't prepared and something comes up and I can't effectively use the time that people have agreed to spend with me. It's kind of now cliche in television news. We don't waste your time.
Right.
But that's actually been something I've felt very strongly about for a long time. You and I go back long enough to remember, that the public airwaves, purely broadcasting, predating even cable, it was this precious thing, and you were trusted with it. It was part of the public trust. And I guess that's what still motivates me, even though the way people pick us up is very different. I still think there's a usefulness in viewing things as something that you're entrusted with. And if you're entrusted with that and then you fail to do what it takes to make sure you can effectively use that time, then you're wasting people's times. And I don't think they should tolerate that.
I want to get into the Scott Sander resume a little bit.
It's short. We shouldn't take long on it.
You've been here at Wish TV 8 since 2005
Correct.
when you came on as a reporter. But I want to hear about the stops that you made before you were able to come home, because you are home.
Yeah. So, how far back do you want to go?
Well,
the first time I opened a mic?
I want to find out about that job in some dinky market somewhere.
The best dinky market for me was Davenport, Iowa.
Okay.
Where I was. So I went to the University of Missouri, which is a terrific opportunity. Well, see, I'm going to make it the long version. So I went to high school here in Central Indiana, and my high school, Carmel High School, has an FM radio station, and that opportunity and a teacher who said, "You don't have any idea what you want to do you?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, you're not terrible at this, so why don't you try this?" That then led him to suggest to me that I look at a place like Missouri or Syracuse or Northwestern, and the other two wouldn't have me, so I went to Mizzou. And they have an NBC station there, and essentially all of the reporters on the NBC station in Columbia, Missouri, are students, without exception. There are no hired reporters there. Mm-hmm. All of the anchors most of the anchors tend to be full-time professional staff, and then the weekends are kind of a mix of students and whatnot. At least that's the way it was when I was there. So when you get through the Missouri program, whether you like it or not, you will have been a television reporter. And then my first job out of there was in Davenport, Iowa, where I drove east till I hit the Mississippi River, and then I just drove north up along River Road and arrived in Davenport in 1995. Oddly enough, I could look at a calendar and tell you the date because as I was driving up, and I still remember the old Honda Civic I had and the radio that was playing it, I was listening to coverage of the Oklahoma City bombing.
Right.
And all I could think of was that newsroom needs more people. Even in Iowa, we knew that I knew that I need to be there right now, and I had this horrible sense of urgency. I wanted to enjoy the drive, but I was like, I need to get there faster because surely they're going to be swamped with need. So I got to Davenport. It was an important job for me because that's where I met my future wife. She was a full-time student at the University of Iowa, and on the weekends, because she's not just an overachiever, she's the overachiever's overachiever. She would work 2 12-hour shifts on the weekend for us as a reporter and photographer.
Wow.
And so as happens in small markets, you all go out and, have Bloody Marys and exchange war stories at the end of the day. And, that led to conversations. And eventually she and I both headed out to Colorado at the same time. And our careers pretty closely paralleled each other. And so Davenport will always be my most important small market.
And how long did you stay in Davenport?
Was only there for 2.5 years.
Okay.
So we were on the way to Denver by late 1997.
That's a nice jump to go right from Davenport to Denver.
Denver was and is a remarkable place, and I was very fortunate to have the opportunity out there. Worked for an owned and operated station of CBS, and what's nice about that is then you have the resources to cover things the way they ought to be covered. So, and this was still sort of golden years of broadcasting, where if there was a story that needed our team covering it, then you went there, and then you dealt with the expenses later and all that sort of thing. And, sort of like the modern structure of our economy and the business doesn't allow for that as much, but it gave me some great opportunities. Inside a year there, I was going to a Super Bowl. I was covering stories up in the ski lodges. I was, going down to New Mexico. I went up to Calgary to cover the first LASIK surgery, which now is so very, very commonplace. But that was a really neat experience.
So it must have been exciting and gratifying when you got an opportunity to come home and return to Carmel.
Yeah, and I share the story. This will be the first time I've shared it outside the building, but I my suspicion is that the people who take the time to listen to your podcast might appreciate this story. So I'll go ahead and tell it. So my son was born in 2004, and at that time, my wife and I loved Colorado. But almost at the exact same time over dinner one night, we looked at each other and basically said, it's time to head back home. Because if you, in the old atlases, the crisscross where you'd say, well, how far is it from Manitoba to, Miami or whatever? And it would, it's 1,738. If you did the crisscross, at least in the one we had between Denver and Indianapolis, it was 1,000 miles. Not 950 miles, not 1,040. It was 1,000 miles, and I don't know, something symbolically there just sort of fired in both of our brains and said 1,000 miles is too far to be from family. So we said about at the same time on the same night, it's time to go home. So well, then what do? So I basically reached out to these stations that I was terribly intimidated by, because when you grow up in a place, you never think you're good enough for it. And I've been, like I said, in Denver doing, I think, pretty good work, and in a station that's very well regarded. But still, I was very nervous reaching out to Indianapolis. But I was at a point where I was basically doing that outreach myself, and I got in contact with Tom Cochran. And Tom was a legacy anchor for WTHR. While I was, in my teen years, he was the voice. And boy, he had a voice, too. And then fast forward to where I was at that point in my career, he had become the news director at Wish TV. And so I reached out to him and to others and said, I don't know what your circumstances are, but I'm available and interested in coming back home. And Tom gets on the phone to me. And this paraphrase, it's been a few years, but the essence of it was, well, Scott, it's interesting that you've called, because I'm holding in my hands the resignation letter of Mike Ahern. Now, Mike was an even more iconic anchor here at Wish TV, the guy that we all grew up watching, and I just revered as a broadcaster. as we opened the conversation with, as someone who I always knew would be prepared and valued the trust that he was given. And so I said, well, that's not good. And he goes, no, but it'll create an opening, and I don't know where you'll fit in, but we'd love to have you. And I'm like, wow, here are these two voices from my teen years, like colliding in life circumstances to make an opportunity for me to come back home.
Man, so how much fun is it now? I mean, it's been 17 years that you're back. How much fun is it on a daily basis when you run into old friends in the grocery store, and now you're that guy?
They still give me a hard time, which is good. I wouldn't want it any other way. It's interesting because when you plug back into a community, at the age I was 17 years ago, I was still very much about me. And now whenever I go out, it doesn't occur to me that anybody would be interested in me because it's all through the kids. And so, your social structure builds through them. Your self-value is, am I doing a good job parenting and all of that? So when we go out, like 75% of the time, if there's recognition, it's, oh, there's Marin's dad. Or, oh, yeah, that's Owen's pop. He, whatever. And then out of nowhere, there might be the, hey, you're the guy from TV. Or, you and I went to high school together. But it's now far less common. So the kids get a kick out of it. I get like sort of caught sideways by it. But it's nice to sort of be at that point now where it's like, yeah, you've been here forever. I know you because our kids went to preschool together.
I think you have a good sense of the kind of audience I have. I feel like we probably can talk some inside baseball because of the people that take the time to listen to this podcast. What kind of advice do you have? Because I feel like I'm at a loss in advising young people who want to get into this business because the business is in such a state of flux.
Wow. Well, I've spent my entire career not giving opinions, so advice is along those lines. That's tough for me. But I will say this. All I can speak about is my experiences because they're so very different than the experiences the newer generations will have. In fact, I'll share with your listeners what you and I talked about before we started this conversation. I am now at the point where there are technologies out there that I don't understand, and I either need to figure them out or I'll be passed by forever because it's cumulative. It builds on itself. Like when we made the change from film to videotape, that was a huge jump. And if you didn't care enough to figure out how the next generation of technology worked, you would be forever left behind. I've now almost reached that point with a lot of the digital technologies, and both online and just things you do in the computer, editing and whatnot. So all this is a roundabout way of saying, don't let yourself get locked into what you're learning at that moment. There was a curriculum that I went through in college and in high school, and then the first several years as a professional. This is what you learn. This is how you do it, and it was sort of like a fixed point in space. And I've spent too long not realizing that point is not fixed, and it's forever evolving. I remember the first time somebody showed me a GoPro camera, and I thought, well, that's really cool, but it's not a high enough quality, and it'll never make it on TV. Well, now all the cool stories have GoPro cameras all over the place, and I sort of had to be dragged into that, where it would have been much more valuable for me if I would have been enthusiastic about that. There's that self-help book, Who Moved My Cheese? I'm very guilty of getting fixated on the way it was, the way I liked it, and what I was good at, while other people are like, yeah, that's great, but there's a new way of doing it. It's faster, or it's more effective, or it's more cost-efficient, and so this is the way we're moving. And I'm like, but I like this old way. So be flexible in a way that I haven't been.
Of course, I would argue that you can still write short declarative sentences, and there are a lot of people that's in short supply.
Oh, listen. Okay, so now you've opened up the can of worms. And I forget who it was. It was an author who's been quoted many times, and now I can't remember who it was. But the essence of it is, I would have been more concise, but I didn't have time. In other words, it goes back to that. If there's a value to the time that people are giving as a listener or a viewer, then use that very well and write in a concise fashion that has no artifice, no ornamentation. Give me a subject, give me a verb, move on to another sentence, and fill me with information. Not your opinion, not your reflections. don't bog it down with a bunch of unnecessary adjectives because we feel somehow like we must comment without commenting. All of that. In my view, the most effective news writing will always be tell me something quickly, then tell me something else until you run so short on time there's no time left to tell me things.
And that requires rewrites.
It requires rewrites. It requires diligence. It requires being open-minded to the way you wrote that is maybe good, but there may be a better way to do it. Other eyes. What do you think of this? Yes, I believe writing should be sweated over. I feel like it should be difficult. And if you do it often enough, then you get to a point where you can do a pretty effective job right out of the chute. And that happens a lot of times when news is breaking. What you're seeing, we'd call it ad-libbing, but it's just writing on the fly. And you can develop that skill, but you have to care about it. You have to want to write well. And I think it was Mervyn Block. The old book was Shorter, Sharper, Stronger. That's what it is. I mean, you're not writing novels here. You're not writing how-to manuals. You're writing news. That means people are paying a degree of attention while they also brush their teeth. Tell me in a way you couldn't misunderstand it, that doesn't tell me how you feel about it, but it gives enough information to the consumer that they can figure out how they feel about it. And yes, short declarative sentences, please. Whoever took verbs out of television news, I want to take them out to lunch and maybe try to convince them to put them back in.
Gosh. We could really go off on a tangent, but give me a sense as we wrap up how optimistic you are about the business of television news as a way of people getting the information they need.
Gosh, you're asking a cynical old pessimistic guy to be optimistic about something. I will say this. I think that there was a time where I, like most in this industry, feared we're going the way of the dinosaur. And in the last several years, and this will sound very much like I'm being Pollyanna or somehow trying to curry favor with the boss, and all I can ask you is believe me, I don't have time for that. I will say this. Our current owner, for instance, has shown a way for if you understand what you do have and you don't chase down trying to be something that you don't have, you can be very useful by focusing on where you live and what the people who also live there need and want, the issues they face. Local broadcasting, it has the strengths of print journalism in that we've got a newsroom, we've got professionals working in it, we have people who are craving information, who know how to go about getting it, but it also has moving pictures in it, and it has the impact of sound and all of that, and those don't go away. And as much as I'll sit on my phone and scroll and look at all the interesting things that are on the different social media, I, anyway, will still always want a place where I can go and have someone who has curated information present it to me, maybe so I can be doing something else at the same time. But, yeah, I think I am very optimistic now in a way that I may not have been a few years ago, that there will, for the foreseeable future, be a place where we can do what we do, because people seem to, if you do it, gain their trust, and earn that trust over and over again, will want to continue to come back to it. And so, yeah, I guess you've dragged a little optimism out of me.
Good. He is Scott Sander. He is the consummate professional, and you can check him out weekdays here on Wish TV 8 on Daybreak. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, George.
My thanks to Scott Sander for joining me for Behind the Eight. Listen and subscribe to this and all the unique podcasts available on the All Indiana Podcast Network. This is George Mallet with Behind the Eight, signing off.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network, this is Behind the Eight Podcast with Wish TV's George Mallet. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And connect for even more on Facebook and at wishtv.com.